The recording has started.
Alright, let's see, just a few seconds, there we go. Alright everybody, it is Education by Ed. Today is April 8th, 2018. We have Exhibit 05051 that we'll listen to again. Listen and pay attention, where even they admit that it's a voluntary system.
When the liberal group got a exempt status, and three that I just mentioned didn't for over 2 years. Mr. Nunes mentioned Ms. Lerner. Who was her boss in 2011 and 2012? Who did she report to?
I believe it would have been
Sarah Ingram, maybe?
part of that time, and part of that time another gentleman.
Okay, and that other gentleman has since submitted his resignation?
I believe so.
And what is Ms. Ingram doing today? What's her job title?
She works on on implementing the Affordable Care Act.
Okay, who promoted her to that position?
I would have moved her into that position.
Why would you promote somebody to that position who was in charge of the exempt organization division, which certainly has had some controversy over the last couple years, under an investigation?
Because she is a superb civil servant, sir.
So she had nothing to do with this?
I wouldn't imagine so.
Even
By the
though
way, I can't speak to individual cases. I can say generally, we provided horrible customer service here. I will admit that. We did. Horrible customer service.
You
Whether it was
targeted
politically
an individual.
motivated or not is a very different question.
You targeted an individual, an American who still doesn't know to this day why he was question number 26.
All right, time has expired. Mr. Becerra is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your testimony. And let me key off of something, Mr. Miller, you said. You said foolish mistakes were made. I think the President actually said it better. He said that the handling of those tax-exempt applications in that process at the IRS was outrageous and intolerable. No excuse. And as much as we know that the folks at IRS have a thankless job because they have to go and tell their fellow Americans that they may be audited or they have to do this work understaffed, we have to maintain the confidence in the system because it's a voluntary system of payment of our taxes.
Agreed.
And so you are right, it was a foolish mistake, but the President's even more correct that it was outrageous and intolerable. Now, let me also focus on something, Mr. George, you said. When you were asked, was there any finding or evidence of political motivation here, you said no.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And so what we find is a situation where inexcusable activity took place because it erodes the confidence of the American people in a system where they participate voluntarily. And if there's a place in public service where you have to have the highest level of conduct and standards, it's at the IRS. And so, Mr. Miller, I think it's unfortunate for those who are in positions of authority, but the buck has to stop somewhere, and I think that's exactly what we're saying. That should not diminish the good work that has been done by anyone within the IRS over the years. And so I hope you understand that you are here today talking to us because we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to clean up and clear out so we can go back to the business of making sure that people respect the fact that we have a voluntary system of paying our taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Miller, I want to talk a little about the culture of the organization. As looking at the note, your bio, 90,000 employees, $12 billion budget. You've been there 25 years. I'm concerned, and I guess to start off, you know, we've got a mission statement there. I'm very concerned about the breadth and the depth of maybe what's going on. I think a lot of employees probably do a good job, but I've been a person that's been in business 30 years and run larger organizations. So you've got a mission statement in terms of talking about working for the American people, doing what's right, playing by the rules. Is that something that's internalized at the IRS, or is that just something on a website?
So I believe, Congressman, it's internalized, and the vast majority of our folk are hardworking, incredibly honest people. I'm going to tell you, and you guys should hear that as these discussions occur, it's damaging to the morale of those people. It's probably ultimately damaging to the sense of voluntary compliance, which underlies our entire tax system.
Well, let me just say, obviously, I think there's probably a lot of good people, but at the same time, we've got a massive PR problem at minimum.
We do.
And this has got to be dealt with quickly, and it can't just drag on for 6 months to a year. So I think we need to get to the bottom of it. The other thing, let me just ask, in terms of that size organization, who's in charge? Who's the boss? How is that hierarchy? How does it work? You know, I ran a very decentralized business where I had a corporate structure, but I had managers and partners in different operations. How is the IRS, you know, in terms of being an acting commissioner? You've been there 25 years. Who do you report to, or the commissioner ideally in the past, who do they report to? And at what point, when something like this comes up, who's involved at the next level up?
So the reporting chain and the organization is there are 2 deputies and reporting to the commissioner, and the commissioner reports to the deputy secretary of Treasury.
Who's ultimately responsible?
The commissioner, acting commissioner, not the Treasury. The Treasury relationship is such that they would not be involved.
So who would be responsible for you? Who basically asked you to resign or fired you?
It would be Secretary Lew.
Secretary of Treasury. The other thing is, let me ask you, there's been 2 people that have been, were you terminated or fired? What happened there? Or are you getting ready to retire?
I was asked to resign, and I will retire.
Okay.
As under the civil service rules.
Now, on what basis do you feel like you're getting asked, and maybe one other person, I guess, got asked, but it seems like there's a lot of other people, ideally in Cincinnati and Washington and other parts, that haven't been held accountable?
I'm not sure what the question is, sir. If I could answer it and then tell me if I'm answering the wrong question.
Okay, go ahead.
We're not done yet. We're not. We now have the Treasury Inspector General's report. We now have the sense of the facts. Now is the time for those that remain, including the incoming acting commissioner, Mr. Werfel, to take those actions.
Let me mention, as it's been brought up with a couple of the ladies that work with you, Lois Lehner and Sarah Ingram, what's being done about those 2? Because they've been in the press. There's a lot of concern about that. They ran a large operation, and it seems to be at the heart of the issues today. I think that's got to get dealt with in a very aggressive, clear way in the next week or 2.
I don't know whether it will be or not. That will be up to the new acting commissioner.
Okay, well, Ed somehow managed to get in just as this finished. Not sure what he was doing, probably spoiling his dog. So, Ed, we just finished with Exhibit 05051, and there was 4 times I heard that it said tax system was voluntary. So, why don't you take it away?
I appreciate that. That's what I'm getting ready to put out this week, dealing with income tax, federal, state, and property taxes. Now, I've done the research on this, and I've got some people that sort of questioning the way I'm getting ready to do this. And I'm getting ready to do it in such a fashion because I've dealt with some of these men and women personally at the House and Senate. I grew up with this with Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, Thompson, and Jerry Brown. I do remember in California when a bill was passed called the Garbus-Gann bill that really froze property taxes under basically a Republic Constitution structure that was filed that guaranteed your property taxes were stable at that point in 1982, could never go up so long as you passed your assets and your property through your bloodline of that existence. This is all real factual stuff. So they couldn't raise your property tax or do anything, but you agreed to basically when Ronald Reagan stated that you can't exceed property taxes. That was a deal he did with the immigration for accepting 1 million people back then, if people paid attention back then how it was adopted and put in place. So some people comprehended what the agreement was, some people didn't. So your property taxes were froze back then so long as that you passed your property through your bloodline. In California, the Garbage-Gann bill. Well, you have to comprehend, I put this out, that each state has to agree to these terms. And each state originally has a contract going back to the 1800s with the British government, the Vatican. These are all facts. We know it. Now I'm getting ready to put my instruments out. And I've listened and watched what you all do. And I admire a lot of people that have stand up, done things. Now when I'm putting my instruments out too, I'm putting a title into it that I'm told if I don't pay these privileges, I don't have a right to live. I am putting an instrument medically on my structure when I was at the doctor last week. And so this is the point that we all know how these men and women administratively come down to play these circumstances, but some of these men and women don't quite comprehend what they're actually doing administratively. Some do because they know they get the bonus checks. Those are the bills that are passed. Because we know these bills, when they pass, it raises different other structures in the state. It's like the one thing is I do respect Kid Hopper that came out and said last year, why doesn't Kate Brown write off the $1 billion on a straw man account? He knows. And that stuff is in my instruments. I filed with Kid Hopper on property taxes and all this when I'm filing on the county. They have the information. Not only that, people have seen my videos, what's going on. But I don't hold any resentment to anybody. Because when it comes down to it, life is a learning experience. My deal is I want to see our public lands back open. I want to see people back on the streets where they're not afraid to walk down the street. We shouldn't live in this panic, worried situation that we've been psychologically put in place to live. And so these men and women are standing up for their rights. We have to admire them. And sometimes we might not even get their beliefs why they're standing up, or they have their own personal beliefs of why they're standing up. We can't knock that because the First Amendment gives us equal rights. The one thing about the First Amendment, there's no such thing as racism, colorism, or anything in that in the First Amendment. It's equal to each man and woman. And that's the one thing that people forget, that it's equal. And we get caught up. It's like the one thing that we're going through with a lot of these so-called shootings that have been in place, and everybody keeps wondering whether the birth certificates or the death certificates. Now, I heard an interesting case today from another country. A man was reported dead, and he went back to the courts to prove he was alive, but the courts had already ruled he was dead. So they can't change that fact, is what they're saying administratively. But did the man write an affidavit that he put in fact that he was alive? We don't know. But we do know that the court case I heard, if it is facts, it's an interesting tale because the man didn't prove that he was alive to the court, did he? We don't know the truth of all that, of how he filed. And if he did file, why didn't the court accept it? Why didn't people stand behind him that knew, or if they did stand behind him that knew, how come the people didn't stand up behind him in his area who believe the truth? We live in amazements. We really do. So, but anyhow, tonight, I've been preaching on taxes and dealing with child support and all this stuff. Now, see, with child support is one of those things that is a conflict of interest to me. If you have a child, take responsibility. If you don't have a child, you shouldn't be liable. And the court couldn't make you liable because if they prove a bloodline by their DNA status, how can they sit there and say that somebody's liable when they're not? So these are the blessings that we look at in life when we stand up against these public employees, elected servants. And I put this in my statement that I put out here recently. And so it's like somebody said, well, you didn't get response from different things that you filed. Well, I comprehend with the responses when I'm getting ready to put out, I will get responses. Because I want them to either make amends, because I'm not after all the stuff like people go after for the big dollars or whatever, the corporation money. My goal is to make sure our public lands are open. We should not be feared going on our public lands when we see somebody out there. We shouldn't be feared from a public or elected employee out in the public service. I mean, I've had good response from public employees when I've hunted and fished, and I've had some that have been questionable. But these are the things that we have to take by men or women by their aura or the way they present themselves. There's a lot of things that we don't get in life, but there's a lot of things we comprehend that saves us through the journey here. So I'm getting ready to put some other paperwork out pretty soon, coming up with my alleged property taxes. To date, they have not certified anything I've asked them to certify. So the letter I'm putting out is going to be an interesting thing that I'll publicize. And that's going to ask them to certify a whole bunch of things, including 1938 Foreign Agent Registration Act. We do have the videos on YouTube where the local elected and public servants have admitted they don't have license and bonds and they don't need it. We do know that the county of Lincoln County went bankrupt years ago, that they put in retirement structure their assets to keep the county floating. That was done in a News Times paper. So, but a lot of people don't pay attention to what is going on with our elected and public employees and how they're balancing things out. The only thing that we are after are elected and public employees so they honor their oath of servitude. They start honoring their oath of servitude, a lot of questions start being resolved, and not only that, there's a lot of issues that will be resolved and problems won't continue the way they are going today. So this is the one thing that we're living in, these dilemmas that we know, that we have to live with. But we can change. We, the people, are the change, the first branch of government. And we have to remember that we have servants. And they're liable for their actions. And so we've seen a lot of new filings that people have attempted. But you have to remember when you file your paperwork to know what court you're filing into. And I have come to the comprehension with the reading and knowledge that I have been getting and passing on to others, including with vaccinations and other stuff, so long as we're honoring the words and we got elected and public servants in these positions who are honoring their words, we do have people in the medical field that are honoring the structure on the birth certificates and stuff. And we have to admire these men and women who are doing these things. It's just an interesting point of view that comes out. It really is when you think about these things, that things are slowly changing. And I watch people that all the time say they get upset or this, that, and the other thing, but it's like stepping out of the movie and watching productions of how things are maneuvering compared to what we think they are or what we are interpreting things are. So with that, we've been over tax structures. We've been over a lot of things. I want to open up the floor to people because I want to get some other stuff in, because when I'm getting ready to put out this paperwork, it will be publicized because I'm making sure the media gets it, including Lars Larson, talk show host, and we've had many interesting conversations over his career. So I'll be getting this information out to everybody when I start publicizing these other things. It's interesting. I went to the doctor last week, and I have medical issues, but they're still playing the medical game. Because if you don't sign their pain contracts or do what they tell you, they're telling you that you don't have a constitutional right to exist because you're not following their medical program structure that they have to do. And remember, those medical program structures they tell you how to file or to follow through with, or what the House and Senate bill passes, these administrative bills that controls your life. These men and women do know this stuff. A lot of you folks are slowly getting it, and some of it are opening your eyes up more and more, but this is how the system works. If you're a severe chronic pain man or woman, even teenager, possibly child, who knows the pain better than the man or woman or child that's actually living through it compared to somebody who wants to make an opinion? So these are the things that we go through. It's like when you're writing your affidavits dealing with your bloodline. If you're using the word I, put a name there. Me, put a name there. It helps to clarify that so they cannot try to say, well, what does me mean? Because you can go through terminology of me or my or why. You want to make sure those things are not open for interpretations when you're putting these type of things together. It's for your protection. That's what it comes down to, our protection. So, but anyhow, my friend, I'd like to open up the floor.
All participants are unmuted.
Hello? Anybody there?
I unmuted everybody, but it looks like they're shy.
Oh, okay. No problem with shyness tonight. We get that, how that could be, but, you know, the one thing is when this starts opening up, now I'm putting all this stuff out. A lot of people have been watching what they've been putting out. And that's the one thing that we need to start standing up behind one another and start endorsing one another and believing in one another that are standing up. That's our responsibility. So I got a question. Do we have a guy from Texas here on the line? Dave, are you here tonight?
Yes, Ed.
So the one point I want to ask you. Now we have to respond to this letter that they presented to you, correct?
Yes, Ed.
So what is one thing that you're looking at, because they have not certified their point of view, have they or have they not?
No.
So the other point is responding back, because even in the letter it says that we cannot make you, force you to have the child get immunized, but then again we're recommending it.
Yes.
So by the recommendation that they're putting in, because the kid is not in brick or school building or something like that because it's online education, and they haven't even proved their stocks and bonds or their clarification, my thought was that I was bringing to you that I didn't finish the other point that I was going to do to you, or do for that letter or the information, is ask them to put back in writing why does it make a difference for the point that they're trying to claim when they have not proved their standing?
Oh, because they their response to me when I asked them on the phone was that it's school code for brick and mortar, but that's the thing. They don't seem to they don't want to break it apart to where yes, it's brick and mortar, but she's not in brick and mortar. She's taking online courses. So again, how is she harming anybody if she doesn't get an immunization? And they can't come up with the answer. They just say, well, it's school code.
Right. So isn't it time to ask where it states that in the funding mechanism of their administrative rules?
Yes.
So let's put it this way. I thought let's go after the finances of it.
I've also responded to them in an email telling them that statutes, codes, and ordinances are not laws, and they the reason that they're not laws is because they're unconstitutional and they lack due process. And this is their response back to me because of that.
So have you responded back to that one yet?
No, I have not.
Okay. So the thought is that they haven't proved a certification, they haven't proved standing. So in other words, they're arguing over a patent that they patent under administrative rules called the bar, their so-called law, right?
Correct.
Now, we need to ask them where the insurance bond is on this administrative rule that compensates for these type of things that might transpire by the force that they're doing this to a man or a woman that has the potentials, and we already have the evidence, you know what I'm saying there.
Yes.
So put that back to them and ask them, please send me the insurance and liability so that way we know who's covering it.
Okay.
See, we're still asking the questions of these men and women because they're freaking out because some of these people are not used to having this when people are willing to say, wait a minute, this doesn't sound correct. So they're going through paranoia in a sense. They're going, why are these people questioning us? Because you got to remember, some of these people were brought up that you're not supposed to question authority. You're supposed to just do what you're told. You know, and so it's sad that some of these people have been brought up that way. But then again, we have to show a little bit compassion for that, but we have to make sure they comprehend it, they keep going in the directions they're going. This means they violate their oath of public service, and due process is going to have to be served.
What I think is funny that they're still saying, well, we're not requiring the student to be vaccinated, but in order to be enrolled in school in accordance with the duly enacted laws of state of Texas, we need the state's mandated form to be properly completed and turned in. And he says his letter of instructions on how to obtain this form, which they're talking about that affidavit, which, as I've already stated, is a bond. And I'm like going, okay, why do I need that? And then they said, well, or you can get a doctor that's licensed, which Board of Examiners versus Swimmer clearly states nobody's licensed. So, and I've already posed that question to them on the line, and they said, well, you need to find one. And I'm like, well, if nobody's licensed, and they say, well, she has to be vaccinated because you might, what was it? They were saying that she might be sick and she gets somebody else sick, or they're sick and they might get her sick. And then that's when I posed the question to them. So then why would I get her vaccinated if the person's sick and they're going to get her sick and the vaccine doesn't even work in the first place? And then they turn around and made it sound like I was an incompetent parent to even do this, that I would endanger other children with my child being sick or something. And
no, I know that one. It's like when I grew up, when some kid had the measles or mumps or something like that, chicken pox, all the parents would bring them to that house to see who was able to get it. You know, and that was the one thing that we grew up in that point where, all right, if you didn't get it, you knew that your body was adapted. And if you got it, well, you went through the itchies and stuff like that. Most people didn't get the shots when I grew up in the 60s. I mean, that's the one point. I don't know if people were in my age bracket, 60s and 70s, when, you know, they went through different things that were going on, that they would take you to someone's house that they had something that was going on to see if you got it or not.
Well, apparently the vaccine is not working because they said that the flu, on the news, about a week ago, they said that the flu is going to continue, I guess, even longer, that it hasn't slowed down. So I don't know what's going on, but my children and I haven't even been sick throughout the whole flu season. So
I know.
But then you hear on the news about, what was it, so many adults and so many children have already died after getting the vaccine.
Mm-hmm. Including nurses that were told if they didn't get the vaccines, they'll be fired. They got the vaccines, and a lot of them got sick or died. Sad to hold somebody for the job position over their, even their First Amendment of religious belief. Aren't they supposed to live with the consequences?
Yeah. Plus, also, I did find it. What was it? And it's even, and that's what's funny that people turn around. Why would the government do that? What was it? Back in the 50s, government was, those girls that used to play the minute and hour watch hands with something that would glow in the dark, and people got sick from that. And then they put something on top of a building, and they were running tests on it. Again, government was involved in that. Plus, under CFR 21, it even talks about it. I mean, it's written in black and white that they put aluminum in these shots. So, I mean, that's one of them that I found. But, I mean, if it's written in black and white, it's not a conspiracy. They are literally doing it. It's just people, I guess, just don't want to believe it. But, I mean, it's kind of hard to not face the truth that it's written in the Code of Rules something. I can't remember what CFR stands for out offhand. But anyway, it's written in there. And people just don't want to believe it.
Plus, no, I know what you mean on that one.
Yeah, it's also like it, TSP. It's in a box. It tells you that it's got paint thinner in there. And we're buying it. And the thing is that it's like we still don't want to believe it. I don't know. I guess we're in denial.
Well, no, we're not totally in denial. What we do is we get talked on statistics where they say, well, the FDA says so much of this ain't going to harm your body, so why do you worry about it if it's in your food or anything? So we get double talked out of the parts that we put in our body because they're saying that it doesn't affect us when it really does.
Well, it's funny if people are not so worried about it, then why they have a commercial that talks about, well, there's, what was it? It's where they're doing about a water commercial about getting lead out. And he says, oh, but it's okay. It's within the range that it's okay to drink. And you see the guy getting upset going, what? Here's a cup of lead. Drink it. I mean.
Well, and then the other point, you know about lead, that when they were doing lead, that when they try to see in your home and all that by their x-ray visions and all that, lead paint wouldn't allow that through your home. So there's a double-edged sword with lead on that structure, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes, I know. In fact, what did they do? They made it illegal that you could even use lead in paint anymore because it was a children's. So it's a green lead paint. So if that's not acceptable, and as they had brought out before, one doctor says that back then we were getting like only 3 to 6 shots. Now these kids are getting 33 shots. So and somebody went, oops, we forgot to recalculate.
Yep.
So these kids are getting like triple of what we ever got when we were young.
Yeah, and some of us got sterilization shots, and we didn't even know about that one. You know, some of the kids that ain't able to pass their bloodline down, the things that make you go,
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Ed.
Ed. Go ahead.
This is Southern.
Go ahead. The floor is yours, Southern.
I sent you a message or IM message.
Okay, I am not on Facebook right now.
Yeah, you're not?
No. I'm sitting in the kitchen, was walking in and out the door, enjoying the weather right now on my front porch.
Well, you might want to go read it. It's dealing with your vaccines.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want to elaborate on any of that right now, then, or?
Well, people need to read this. It's 8 USC 1182. All right.
Okay, what does it give an idea to?
It tells you all the stuff you're supposed to be vaccinated against.
Okay.
All right, that's where they're getting it from, right there.
Well, gotcha. I never do vaccinations myself, so. One thing, I haven't done a vaccination basically my entire life since I can recall, since the last time they gave me one in school.
Yeah, I got them in school.
Yeah, well, I remember they used to have that thing where I got the marks on my shoulder that looked like there's like 16 needle marks.
Yep.
That was the last one I recall I had. It's like, what are they putting in me? And after that, I just wouldn't comply. So I'll get that put out on the website a little later on that. I appreciate the knowledge to pass on. I will get that done.
You might want to read that whole section there. It's got some interesting stuff in it.
Okay.
All right. I'm out of here.
No problem. We'll get that posted after a bit here. Like I said to folks, right now I'm not in line. I'm just enjoying a little bit of time this afternoon. Get ready. Like I said, I'll be getting my other stuff sent out this week. because I want to make sure it gets out there, and including with the videotapes. I was so fortunate that after the videotapes were misplaced out of my home, I'll put it that way, they showed up on the internet, so I was able to save the ones from the House and Senate with the District Attorney and State Attorney General, where nobody disputed anything I said at the Capitol. So, sometimes you just got to step out and just appreciate what you have. So, but that's the one thing that when you put your structure together, is remember, and the one thing is, I don't care what anybody tells you. Put in 3771 corpus delicti. Because if you are proven to be the injured man or woman, you have facts. You cannot put an instrument together and make a false statement. Because we are liable for our words. And with us standing for the liability of our words, that comes down to the point of these things. Because without that, there is no future. Either people have faith in their future or there is no future. So these are the things that will step out of the movie, watch the production. And like I said, I will be putting out my stuff coming out here pretty soon. Somebody has mentioned to me sometimes where, well, maybe I haven't got advanced so far in some of my a fight or movement yet. But the bottom line comes down with that, there's always a time and place for what's supposed to happen. So I do see this coming out here pretty soon, maneuvering positively, showing some real facts and future out of here. But we have to remember that, you know, our public land and resources, we are supposed to share. We're not supposed to fight and argue about. When we're out hunting and fishing, we have to respect one another in our public resources and our public land and our public right-of-way. Because remember, it's ours, equal. And I've been out there in the field hunting and fishing where people want to argue about this, that, and the other thing. But we're not supposed to argue about these things. We're actually supposed to be working together with these points of view of our rights. And so, yeah, I'll get this other point out with the vaccinations out in a bit when I get back online. And share that with the others, too. That's on the conversation tonight. But this is the point that comes down to it, that we're all putting this stuff together. Now, I'm throwing out a thought that I was putting together an idea that I was working on this for the one gentleman that was talking about on vaccination with his kids. I read that email, and I brought out some things with that, and I want to go back on that. It'll actually be about 48 hours, but I'd like to respond back to a couple of thoughts to that for you on that, to put it in, to have them respond back. Because I'm thinking about responding to them with their email to you, questioning them on their sort of ability dealing with the United States of America Republic, elected public employees oversight, and asking why they're violating their oath of office of Texas, what is that called? Oh, the bar exam, the corporation of their card. So why are they going against their administrative rules that we know it's copyright? So when we start looking at these things, we can do these things with each other, backing each other up, and we're doing this. And there's other men and women that are actually been doing this, and we're watching the things that are changing. And it is slowly moving, but sometimes to make movement, it takes a slow process You know, because sometimes you don't want the process to move too rapidly without others keeping up with it. You don't want a landslide where you can't keep up with things. So, but anyhow, the floor is still open. Anybody else would like to respond or throw a thought in? Okay. Okay, so we got pretty much a lot of things covered, I guess, this week. Now, the other point is I'm going to be getting, when you guys email me your other stuff, we'll get it posted. We still are posting different things on new.org and trackers. Sometimes they're not going as fast as maybe some might think it should be, but we are working on things to the best of our ability, because we do have, you know, other things in our life or part of our life or what's going on in our life too as well. So things are getting up there slowly. We do thank everybody that's involved that has been participating, because this is all about we the people. This ain't about anybody else. There is no such thing as a title and nobility, because men and women are equal. You know, even though you might have a religious point of belief on something of an equal point, the Constitution gives men and women equal rights, even though we might not agree with some of those things. But if we don't respect that, how do we expect another woman or man to respect our point of view without us being intimidated by being falsely accused or dragged through the mud and all this other stuff that sometimes people go through when they shouldn't go through it? So these are just thoughts or what we think about how to protect ourselves. And when they write these informations up for us, is our forefathers did one wonderful thing to us and for us. They saw different things that when they sat down with the natives, and remember, some of the forefathers of people's bloodline, even today historically, are part of that has lawful rights and legal rights. Because we know the 14th Amendment was done by administratively, was never ratified. And we do comprehend the corporations, so let's just, we have to work with these things that are there that are designed to protect our bloodline, even though we might not disagree and we wouldn't argue about things. But there was no but. It was there to protect ourselves. The Dred case brought that point forward because men and women didn't file their rights or separate themselves of the 14th Amendment, the way the 14th Amendment put in back slavery when it actually did. But people didn't comprehend the large C and the small c citizen, or the Article 1 courts versus the Article 3 courts. So these are the blessings that we get by our knowledge, passing it around, passing the knowledge back and forth through different emails with each other. So this way we can put this knowledge back and forth so we can make our own decisions. And that's the blessing about knowledge. We have responsibilities to ourselves and our children. I don't owe you, you don't owe me, your children owe you until they're 18. Once they're 18, they're on their own. We got to remember that. Depends on how we raise the children in those point of views. You can't blame a child when you're the liability, responsibility of raising that bloodline the way it turned out. It's like the one thing is I do like to go on YouTube and I watch some of these old videos or these videos that go up called Stupid in America and how stupid people are in America, and you watch these people and their responses to the Constitution or what they think a law means. You know, it is very interesting when some of these people respond on these things. And it shows you where the education has failed in our country for the corporation benefactors. I mean, it's like watching all these situations that happen in our country, dealing with a lot of these so-called devastations, and there's no death certificates on these issues. And like I brought up that one court case that was interesting from another country that stated that even though the guy could prove he was alive, it didn't matter. So that's why it's always worth throwing these things out to these men and women to see what the status of your position, of your name that is being claimed to you is or for. Just a bizarre thought. So, anyhow, anybody would like to have any thoughts tonight? Anybody else would like to throw something further this evening? Okay. Hopefully I'm not getting too deep. So, anybody got any thoughts that we should be looking at probably opening up another channel or throwing some other thoughts for another filing?
Ed?
Yeah, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. This is Wesley Quashurby from Nevada, what they call Nevada. Anyway, I just got on. Did you want to ask me a few questions, Ed? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening, Wesley.
Well, anyway, there's a lot of things happening with the natives, what they call Indians. Basically, it's kind of sad in a way, but today's Indians, they don't want to relearn. And they don't want to, nobody seems to want to understand how much all the Indians are in trouble today. What they call federally recognized tribes.
Mm-hmm.
The federal recognized, federal recognized tribes, in order to be a federally recognized tribal member, it's almost the same thing as joining, like, the Boy Scouts of America or the Girl Scouts, because it's basically you fill out an application and you get approved or not, but yet the tribe / corporation, which is the tribe the incorporated state, they actually profit off of every Indian member, and the Indian member don't see nothing. So I used to be a member of a federally recognized tribe until I learned what it is, and I actually gave it back because I don't want to be a federally recognized Indian. Maybe it might be my opinion, but I'm sure most people would understand. Federally recognized basically means to me, whether it's a government, city, township, state, or individual, they see this Indian standing there with black hair and brown skin. Well, when we recognize something, that means basically, who cares what his name is? Who cares if he's a mother, son, father, uncle? It doesn't matter what his age is. All we know is we recognize him, and that's about it. So the tribes that became incorporated, which I believe every single one of them have a corporate charter, in order to be a federally recognized Indian, America gives the approval for them to be an Indian or not. So there's a lot of tribes, basically, I think I heard there's 240 Indian tribes in California, and each one of them, we're supposed to be a nation by itself, but there's only a few that are federally recognized, and those tribes that are federally recognized, they don't own the land. They can't own the land. Same thing as.
No, we know that, but I got one question to ask you, my friend.
Well, what is it?
It's very simple. Now, you and I hunt. Most people don't know what it's like to skin, prepare, flay their meat, know how to tend their meat, so that way, when they wake up in the morning, they know where the meat came from instead of some foreign corporation.
Well, see, I lived greatly as an Indian for many years. From I think I might have killed my first deer when I was 8 years old, and when I killed.
You said 18?
8. 8.
8?
Yeah.
Oh shit, man! You got me beat.
When I killed my first deer, I had a good teacher with me, and the teacher told me how to pray, how to give, and what to do, and I done all the things that I was told to do, and I went through a nice little ceremony that, made me part of the animal I ended, plus the earth. But anyway, besides all that, like I said, I had a great teacher, and since then I've learned how to offer things to other people, not only my family and myself, but other people. And I lived great, being an Indian for many years until about, it all started at, I would say, at least 7 or 8 years ago, where I finally got confronted by a guy wearing a badge calling himself a game warden. Well, I killed 3 antelope, and like I normally do, and I got stopped. I got stopped by 2 county sheriff deputies, and they had me on. Of course, they had me under gunpoint and all that kind of stuff until I told them and showed them and proved to them that I'm not a threat. And we actually shook hands, and we had a big discussion out in the country on the side of the road. And they almost let me go with all the information that I carry with me, because I'm prepared. I knew I should be prepared with laws in case I ever got confronted by the wrong people. So anyway, after we talked and they were ready to let me go, one of them said, well, we called the Fish and Game, State Fish and Game, and he's supposed to be on his way, and we might as well wait, and I'm sure he could let you go with all the information that you got. Well, we waited for about half an hour or so, and pretty soon the fish shows up. I took his hand, told him who I am, what I am, handed him the law.
Go ahead, Kawashu. I muted Ed because he was being too loud in the background.
Sorry about that. I went and got some ice. Where'd Quasha go?
He appears to still be here, but he's not talking at the moment, so... Nope.
Oh, Quasha, the floor was still open to you. I wasn't trying to be rude. Go ahead. This is the one thing that people need to comprehend of how we were set up on this planet to live with freedom. He's still there, but he's still out there?
Let me refresh and let's see if he accidentally got dropped. And... no, he's still there.
Okay, well, the one thing is, see, what like Quasha was doing and what I keep putting up, and it's like, the circumstances, it goes back to native structure, where people don't comprehend when they wrote the Constitution. Remember the point that when these foreigners came from another country. Until they sat down with an open mind over a peace pipe, they didn't think about things. It's all in all your history books. It's all in all the things we've been educated to believe in. So either you can sit there and make a judgmental thing without comprehending how somebody else ended up where they are and the way they're living life, or the way they are going in their life, or how they're doing about life. If we don't respect another man or woman's point of view, we can't sit there and tell somebody else how to live in their own home or their own vessel, their own ship, their own being, if we're not going to sit there and being told how to live in our own ship or vessel or being. The Constitution was set up to give men and women equal rights with the treaties with the British Vatican administrative rules of religious points of view. Nobody can dispute that. That's why these 501c3s and 9s and your corporation, your courts, your cops, and everybody's under these type of things. And we're living this today. But the point being is that when we have elected and public servants that are personally violating their purpose of appointment, it's like people say, because, well, Ed, you don't do certain things and you don't go push some of your limitations. Because no, I file my stuff. I've been out there. I've done this stuff. I'm getting ready to put my other instruments together or I already got them together, but they're getting ready. I'll be starting to serve them. My frustration, I can't be out there serving them the way I like to serve them, so I'm going to have to do it certified by email. And that's the other point that I'm dealing with on that one. But I realize that I can't go to these men and women's door in their public buildings right now and serve them. Like I said, they made sure at that point. And the other point that disturbs me in my community in Lincoln County, they got all these metal detectors in their courts and stuff now when you walk in the building. To me, that's very interesting because Don Lindley, Terry Thompson, Rob Yvette, all these men and women, Linda Pilser, the tax collector, and all these people that have proved on the fraud for the last 20 years that all these men and women have been elected to public servants in my community, and some of the elections have been questionable over the years. That's a fact. It's been in the media. So, I'm just bringing out the facts that have been going on for the last 20 years. I've had people say, Ed, why don't you get the hell out of there? They're going to do this, they're going to do that. And I've had senators tell me the same thing. Well, you can't run from a shadow. You just have to face up to the shadow. And the shadow knows the truth. And so that is the point. You can't be afraid of the facts. Because it amazes me, too. We got a lot of these people out there that are running a lot of these children organizations out there asking for handouts and money and all these things. And we're starting to find out that some of these, what they're claiming about their books they're writing and stuff, some of it ain't all facts. So that is the one point by the way we're working with each other here, is that we're standing with one another. That's the one thing that we do have here. So I will get the other stuff on the vaccinations sometime tonight out. That will happen. Like you said, this afternoon, I just been slowly enjoying an afternoon where it hasn't been heavily raining. It's basically when I grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area afternoon with over clouds, cool weather, slight breeze. I mean, you know, it's like things that you go through in life that when those type of days happens, it brings you back to a point maybe somebody you grew up in, and you have one of those moments where you remember a special day that happened by that moment that brought you back to that day. And without that day, we cannot have the memories that makes us stand the way we do today, and by the knowledge. So, anyhow, does anybody would like to say anything at this point? Okay, so we're not getting responses at this point. So, anyhow, I do have some things I got to respond back to here in a little bit. I still would like to enjoy a little bit of the afternoon where I'm at, because I want to get some, while I'm able to maneuver, I'd like to get a couple projects done here this afternoon. So if anybody's got nothing to say, I'll open the floor back, but if nobody has something to say at this point, we'll keep things moving this week, that I'll keep things publicized on what I got coming when people send me. I'll get my structures publicized. It'll go to the Oregonian and the major news medias with the property structure, which I am filing this week. It'll go to them. And so we go for them, because if they're going to threaten my safety, and we can prove the sheriff and all this stuff on authority factors in the history, hey, either they got to stand up for the Constitution, or, well, who knows. So we'll figure this one out in another point of view. Anyhow, do we have anybody that would like to speak up? Okay, with that, I would like to say, may the Great Spirit bless you, Mother Earth look over you, and may the Creator bless us all.
And with that, I will say thank you for listening to Education by Ed. It is April 8th, 2018. It may have been a short show, but there's quite a bit of information in there, so just re-listen to it if you missed a few things. And remember, taxes are voluntary. They know it. They're just trying to keep it hidden from you. They will pressure you. What do you do to bullies? You stand up to them, right? Thank you again, and have a very good night and a very good week.